touch on three things, and then we'll have the question and answer session later to follow up on it. First of all, I may be the only practicing lawyer in the room, which is very unusual for a Washington crowd of this size. We've got so many lawyers. But I'll be happy to talk about what it means to go to law school, what law firms and other legal employers look for people coming out of law school. So I suspect that some of you may already be in law school or at least thinking about it. I'd be happy to talk about that maybe in some more detail later. Other thing is we put on everybody's chair a little handout with some of one side is the costs of higher education, the cost of the bubble, the other, what are the values that you get from education? And many of them have been touched on by the earlier speakers. And again, we can get into that in more detail when we get into the Q&A, and we can try to leave enough room on the page if anybody wants to jot some notes. But there are some obvious things. It was mentioned that the cost of higher education is rising more rapidly than inflation. Mentioned that perhaps there are too many people going to college, too low a graduation rate. There are a host of other things, and some of you are quite familiar, I suspect, among this crowd particularly. All of you have a sensitivity to the extent to which higher education is increasingly used for political indoctrination rather than really marketable skills, the kinds of things that you'll use in your actual employment. We can talk about all of those things more as well in the Q&A session. What I wanted to do in the remaining time that I've got is talk just a little bit about the gendered aspect of it. Because all of you on campus have noticed that the guys are less there than they used to be, and they're decreasingly there. And from our standpoint with the Boys Initiative, we view that as a matter of what we call the death by 1,000 cuts. And it all begins far, far before you get to college. It begins even before you get to questions about being prepared for college. It begins down in the earliest grades. If any of you have ever worked with minority youth, gone into, say, an elementary school in an inner city community, you see those kindergartners, first and second graders, and they're just bursting with enthusiasm. They're so excited to be at school. But a couple of years later, you look at that same kid in third grade, fourth grade, the fire's gone. They have lost their interest, they've lost that spark for learning, and there's a host of reasons for that. Because we have a number of deficiencies, a number of boy-unfriendly aspects of our educational system that begin at the earliest age, this death by 1,000 cuts slowly overtakes, and more of them drop off the bandwagon, and fewer become eligible even to consider college as they go along. All of that we can talk about again in more detail in the Q&A session as well. What the Boys Initiative is a relatively new organization. We created it only a year ago, and it's meant to be a network of bringing together people, and there's really only two criteria. One is we're looking for people who are interested in and aware of the needs of boys and feel that boys are worthy of the compassion, care, and help that we can provide, just as for the last 40 years we've done that for girls. If you look, I won't take a full survey, but I would guess that virtually all of you come from a campus where they had either a women's center or a women's studies department or both, and none of them had a boys anything. So, and yet when you look at the population, it's majority female on those campuses. Graduation rates are majority female, and on and on and on. When you look at the dropout rates, the disciplinary rates, and so on, where are the boys? Where are the people who care about the boys? Well, that's what the Boys Initiative is all about. So we're looking to work with anybody who cares about boys, who feels that boys are in need of help and worthy of receiving that help, and we view ourselves as the Big Tent. Anybody who's got an idea is welcome. We don't have any kind of litmus test. We're not specifically for or against single gender education, not specifically for or against appropriate use of drugs that may help for people with ADD or whatever. Our idea as the Big Tent is let everybody come, let everybody talk about their ideas, let everybody share their ideas, and the synthesis from that will allow people then to go back into their respective communities and try to do something proactively helpful. With that, I think I'll sit down and move into the Q&A session. Thank you.